let's go ahead and get started. So in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Planning Board of the Township of Franklin has been provided. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
Councilman Chase, Carl Hauk,
Present.
Alex Karazi,
Here.
Cecile McIver asked to be excused, Robert Mettler,
here.
Mustafa Mansray,
Yeah.
Charles Brown, Robert Thomas, Jennifer Ragnow,
Here.
Godwin Amalola, and Chairman Orsini.
Here. All right, so first this item of business is minutes from the regular meeting of October 17th. And if there's no changes or corrections, I'll entertain a motion for those.
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of October 17th, 2018.
And I will second.
Alex Karazi,
Yes.
Robert Mettler,
Yes.
Mustafa Mansray, Jennifer Ragnow,
Yes.
Godwin Amalola, and Chairman Orsini.
Yes. And then the regular meeting minutes from November the 7th.
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the minutes of November 7th, 2018.
I'll second.
Carl Hauk,
Yes.
Alex Karazi,
Yes.
Robert Mettler,
Yes.
Mustafa Mansray,
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow,
Yes.
Godwin Amalola,
Yes.
and Chairman Orsini.
Yes. For resolutions, we have PSE&G, PLN 18-00011.
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the resolution.
Second.
Alex Karazi,
Yes.
Robert Mettler,
Yes.
Mustafa Mansray,
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow,
Yes.
Godwin Amalola,
Yes.
and Chairman Orsini.
Yes. For discussion, we have the voucher for the December retainer for our planning board attorney, Clarkin and Vignola, in the amount of $833.33.
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the voucher.
Second.
Carl Hauk,
Yes.
Alex Karazi,
Yes.
Robert Mettler,
Yes.
Mustafa Mansray,
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow,
Yes.
Godwin Amalola,
Yes.
and Chairman Orsini.
Yes. Thanks, guys. So just prior to the start of this meeting, we had a meeting of our minor subdivision committee for the first time in a long time, I've been told, for Sagemi Franklin LLC, PLN 18-00014. And I'll just turn it over to Mark Healy to summarize the decision of the minor subcommittee.
Yes, as the chairman indicated, we had a minor subdivision. It was of the Terra Greens property. They proposed it's a roughly, I think, a 130-acre piece of property. They basically subdivided into two large lots. Both lots were fully conforming with the ordinance, so by our ordinance, it goes to the minor subdivision committee. The TRC, our technical review committee, had reviewed it prior, had a number of technical comments that the applicant needs to address, which were incorporated into the committee's resolution, and the board adopted that, or the committee adopted that resolution earlier this evening. We do expect a subsequent site plan application on one of the lots, but that was not the subject of the subdivision that was before the committee.
Yeah, so I just emphasize that that was, again, just for the subdivision. Nothing proposed to being built on there yet, and when that happens, it will come before the full planning board.
Absolutely.
So we don't need any votes or anything. We already took care of that in this minor subcommittee. So I will move on then to public comments and open the floor to anyone from the public who wishes to come forward on a matter related to planning that is not the subject of its own separate hearing tonight.
Mr. Chairman, seeing no one coming forward, I would move that the public hearing be closed.
We never really opened it.
Well, we didn't.
Agenda item.
You opened it.
No, I did, but I mean, we didn't formally,
But it's an agenda item.
I know, but I mean,
Because you don't formally take.
well, we always open it and then
All right,
close it and
whatever you
open
wanna
it.
do, Mr.
But if we don't have to, we'll do it Bob's way because it's quicker. All right, so
Okay.
if there's no one coming forward, then we will close.
I could withdraw it.
No, 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 no. Don't do that.
I will second that.
You know, I'm a creature of habit. Something different happened, so I needed to figure that out. All right. All right, fantastic. So, Peter, do you want me to move on to that, or you want to wait for your client? I think we can present. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So, the one hearing we have tonight is Adriano Caglione, PLN 18-00013.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is an application for a minor subdivision for property known as 113 Martin Street, Block 228, Lot 101 in the R7 zone. There is on the subject property now an existing dwelling. That dwelling dates back to roughly 1920. My client purchased the property approximately a year and a half ago and obtained building permits to rehab the property. You'll hear from Mr. Ludwig the condition of that property when he acquired it. The property was an out-and-out eyesore. Upon acquiring the property, he has set about to renovate the existing single-family dwelling. This application is to create a minor subdivision to keep that lot and to build a new single-family dwelling adjacent to it. I have three witnesses. My client just arrived, but basically his testimony would sort of reflects what I've just indicated. I will call Mr. Ludwig, who is the architect. I will also call Mr. Sadowski, who is the site engineer who prepared the subdivision plan, and then Mr. O'Brien to present the planning testimony. So I'd like to have Mr. Ludwig sworn in.
Hello. You could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your professional address for the record, please.
Kurt Ludwig, Ludwig, 77 North Main Street, Milltown, New Jersey.
Mr. Ludwig, what is your occupation?
Registered architect in New Jersey since 1991.
And have you testified before this board on prior occasions and recognized as a licensed architect?
Yes, I have.
It's accepted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr.
And just for the record, your credentials have not been detrimentally affected since last you appeared and were qualified as a registered architect before this board.
That's correct.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Mr. Ludwig, you were retained by the owner of the property to assist him with constructing a new single-family dwelling on the subject property, should the subdivision be granted. And are you also familiar with the existing dwelling on the property?
Yes.
And have you been to the property on numerous occasions since Mr. Corleone acquired it?
Yes, I have.
And were you familiar with the condition of the property when he acquired the property?
Yes.
Can you indicate to the board what kind of condition the property was in?
The property had been neglected. It was very overgrown with high grass, weeds, trees. The interior was, I think there was a dead car in the backyard. The interior was very dirty, neglected. There was a crushed sewer pipe that was leaking gas. Very bad shape.
And Mr. Corleone decided to renovate that house?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you a series of photographs and ask if you can identify what was in when you visited earlier.
Okay. Should I mark these?
I guess we can
We can mark them A1.
mark it as one
If you want to mark it as one exhibit, tell me how many pages we have. If we could.
There are 4 photographs of the exterior and 2 of the interior of the property.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Ludwig, if you would look through those photographs and indicate if those photographs represented what the property looked like after Mr. Colione acquired it.
Yes, these do represent what was there.
Okay. And the interior of the house, is it a single-level house, or are there 2 stories? Can you describe the house?
It's what I would call a raised ranch, 2 stories, but one of the levels was sunken into the ground, not necessarily as a basement, but somewhat below ground. Living space on 2 stories.
Okay. And how many bedrooms did the house have?
3.
Okay. And what is the approximate size of the house?
676 square feet.
Okay. And then Mr. Colione obtained building permits and is in the process of basically rehabbing the house on the same 676 square feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And it will still be a 3-bedroom house. It'll still be exactly as it was before.
With improvements, it'll be
Yeah,
the
with
same
improvements.
3-bedroom house, yes, same footprint.
Okay. Now, Mr. Colione also indicated to you that he was going to reside in that house once he finished rehabbing it?
He did.
Okay. Now, with respect to the other house that he is proposing, do you have an exhibit showing that house?
I do.
And can we have that marked, I guess, how many sheets do you have?
I have 3.
We'll mark them A2 through A4.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, the first board marked A2 indicates 3 floor plans. We're proposing a single-family 2-story home on basement construction. The drawing all the way to the left is the basement floor plan, first floor plan, second floor plan. First floor plan includes a front porch, foyer, den, powder room, and then a very open living space in the back of the house, kitchen, dining area, great room, door out to the backyard, stairs down to the basement, or stairs up to the second floor, which we're proposing 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a laundry room.
Okay. What is the approximate size of the footprint of that house?
The approximate size is 1,145 square feet.
Okay. And you indicated you were at the property on numerous occasions. Are you familiar with the neighborhood
Yes.
in which the property is located?
I am.
And you checked the surrounding neighborhood. Is this house compatible in size with the houses in the neighborhood?
With the newer homes, it is.
Okay. Go on to your next exhibit, please.
Sure. The board marked A3 includes the 4 exterior views of the house, a front view, right side, left side, rear view. The house will include a gable roof running front to back, vinyl siding, vinyl clad wood windows, and a dimensional roof shingle, traditional style.
Okay, and I think one of the staff reports indicates that the house was like 35.2 feet, which was slightly over the zone requirement. We're going to make the house 35 feet, so it is compliant with the zone requirements.
That's correct.
Okay. Your next exhibit.
So this exhibit is also an outside view, but a 3-dimensional rendering. Again, vinyl siding, dimensional roof shingles. This is a view from the front with the proposed porch, gable roof, garage to the left.
Okay, and what color is that house?
It's going to be in a gray family.
Okay, and in discussing it with the client, this is the house we're going to build that exact size, and we have no objection to making that part of the condition of approval. The house will not exceed anything other than what we are proposing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
You're welcome.
Questions of this witness from the board?
Seeing no questions, I'd like to call Mr. Sadowski.
If you could raise your right hand for me, do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, please.
Ronald J. Sadowski, Sadowski, 10 Edward Avenue, Edison, New Jersey.
Mr. Sadowski, are you a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey?
I am.
How long have you been so licensed?
24 years.
Okay, and have you appeared before this board previously?
I have.
And the board has accepted your qualifications?
They have.
Okay, and your qualifications have not changed since that time?
They have not.
Maybe got a little smarter since the last time you were
I
here?
would hope.
Okay.
Is accepted.
Are you going to be relying on an exhibit this
Yes.
evening?
I'll mark this A5. Site rendering of the site plan drawing that's contained within the site plan package that the board members have.
Okay. Mr. Sadowski, can you describe the lot that is the subject of this application?
Yes, it's a single-family residential lot, corner lot. It's 12,500 square feet in area, and it's at the corner of Martin Street and Pershing Avenue. The existing house encroaches the front yard setback on both Martin Street and Pershing, but outside of that existing variance, the lot is compliant.
Okay. And you indicate that it is in an R7 zone?
R7 zone, yes.
And what are the zone requirements for the R7 zone as far as lot area?
Lot area for a corner lot is 9,000 square feet, and we have 12,500.
Okay. Now, what we are proposing to do in this application is to subdivide the property and create a lot for the existing dwelling and to create a new lot for the house that we are proposing to construct. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And both lots will be what size?
Both lots will be 6,250 square feet.
Okay. So they are both undersized lots for the zone?
Yes, they are.
Okay. With respect to the lot that we will be creating for the single-family dwelling that currently exists on the property, there are existing bulk variances, as you indicated, for that house.
That is correct.
It violates the front yard setback.
Yes.
Are there any other variances that currently exist?
No.
With respect to the subdivision, if the subdivision were to be granted other than the frontage on Martin Street and other than the lot area, are there any other variances that would be created?
The lot width.
Right, that's frontage.
Yes.
Okay. The house itself, does it meet all of the side yard setback requirements of the zone?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The house that we are proposing to construct, that's on a 6,250 square foot lot, correct?
That's correct.
And does, other than the lot area and the lot width, does that lot meet all of the other bulk requirements, front yard, rear yard, side yard setbacks?
It does, yes.
And what is the approximate separation between the two houses?
32 feet, 33 feet.
Okay, and the way the houses are being proposed on the plan, the new house is being set back because of the setback requirements further than the existing house that is in play, correct?
That is correct.
How much of a rear yard setback is there with the new house for use for backyard?
For the new house, it's a little more than 31 feet,
Okay, and what is the rear yard requirements in the zone?
20 feet.
Okay, and for the existing house, how much of a, well, it's not really a rear yard because it's a corner lot, but how much property is there to the rear of the existing house?
Approximately 63 feet.
Okay, which would be the backyard for that house?
That's correct.
Okay. Where are the utilities that service these houses or will service these houses?
They're within Martin Street, so we'll connect off of Martin Street with the new utilities.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Any questions from the board for this witness?
The staff reports, is there any staff comment that you cannot comply with?
We can comply with all staff comments. Mr. Healy, with respect to the one comment concerning sidewalks and street trees and curbing, there are no curbs and sidewalks in that area. We will be requesting a waiver. We can place street trees along the frontage of Martin Street, so we can comply with your ordinance with respect to the street trees.
Thank you.
And would those be, I noticed in the staff comments, the staff, plan, engineer, the township engineer, and I think you have I don't know if it's the same 3 trees. They say you have a three tree obligation. Is that for tree removal, or is that same street trees?
We are only removing 1 tree. We have an obligation for 3 street trees. We can place 4 trees on the property, one to replace the one we're removing, plus the 3 street trees.
Okay.
We have more than adequate room to do that.
Okay.
But again, that's another reason we cited the house, to minimize the removal of any trees.
And there are no curbing or sidewalks in that area?
No, there are not.
Any other questions from the board? For this witness? You?
The current house has no garage, is that correct? And there's no plan to put a garage?
There is no plan to put a garage at this time. That is correct. We were just trying to rehab, and actually, Mr. Corleone, when he came into me, I said, why don't you just knock it down? And he said to me, well, it's a 100-year-old house, which was typical of what was in Franklin 100 years ago, and he wanted to sort of keep it to express what was in Franklin Township in the 1920s. My next witness is Mr. O'Brien.
Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, please.
Kevin O'Brien, O'Brien. My address is Madison House, Suite B, Madison Avenue in Rahway. And I'm still licensed and can produce it upon request.
And you are accepted.
Thank you,
Been
Chairman.
before this board.
And just for the record, you're licensed as a planner.
That is correct.
Okay.
Unlike Mr. Lanford, who is not licensed as a planner.
Mr. O'Brien, you are familiar with the subject property?
Yes, sir.
You are also familiar with the Franklin Township zoning ordinance
Yes.
and the master plan of the Township of Franklin, are you not?
I am indeed.
Okay. Can you indicate to the board why we are here this evening and the variances that we are seeking?
We're here for minor subdivision because this is 2 lots, and we require relief from minimum lot size and lot width.
Okay. And are you going to be relying on any exhibits in presenting your testimony?
I am indeed.
Can we have those marked, and then perhaps I will let you then continue with your testimony?
Yes, sir.
The first document that we're going to have marked is what?
An area map
Okay.
that is colorized.
And it's colorized by you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can I mark that A6?
A6.
And we have enough copies for board members?
We do indeed.
Okay. And A7 is,
Is an aerial view.
okay. Okay, Mr. O'Brien, referencing both A6 and A7, can you go through whether there are any unique aspects with respect to this application?
The current home, as you've heard, is a rather unique 100-year-old dwelling. It fits the character of the neighborhood as it was back in the 1920s. Over the years, though, this area behind Hamilton Street has developed with newer homes, and as you can see from the area map, that there are a number of conforming and non-conforming lots, which I presume date back to the earlier days of development here, possibly in the 20s through the 40s. And there are altogether, of the 30 properties shown on that map, 16 of them are in yellow, and they are non-conforming properties. They do not meet the lot width or the lot area, either or. Of the 30, there are 5 that are vacant. Those are in green. And then there are 9 that do meet the ordinance correctly. And as you can see, the houses on Lewis are somewhat different in that they are very deep, but there are several zero lot line subdivisions there. The ones on Martin and on Lewis on the north side of this block have 50-foot wide lot patterns with typical houses of roughly the same size or so than currently exists on the corner. So by filling in the empty gap between the existing house and the houses to the right on Martin Street, I think that fills in the neighborhood in such a way that it meets the character of the neighborhood. This is an open spot that you can do one of two things with. You can take that 12,000 plus square foot house and put a large house on it, which could have a 2,000 square foot footprint or larger, or you can put 2 regularly sized houses here. And I think the 2 regularly sized houses here are much more in keeping with what is currently in the neighborhood. And you can see from the outlines of the boxes of the buildings, the current buildings, that the existing lot 101, that's the 676 square foot footprint, and then next to it will be 1,100 square feet. And as you can look to the right down that block, roughly similar sized, a little bit bigger, are what exists in this neighborhood.
Now, with respect to the other bulk requirements, the existing house is currently in nonconformity with respect to the front yard. Is that correct?
That is correct. It does not meet the setbacks.
Okay, with respect to the new house, other than the lot area and the lot width, the house will meet all of the requirements of the setbacks of that zone and have the appropriate separation between the adjoining houses. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that is unlike most of the houses on Martin Street, which do not meet the front yard setback of 25 feet. Most of them are fairly close, as you can see from the aerial, fairly close to the street and to the right-of-way, in particular the ones on the north side of Martin. They don't meet that setback, that required setback. This one is going to meet all the bulk requirements for the house itself, unlike most of the other houses in the street.
Okay. Are there any other benefits that would be provided by the grant of this subdivision?
Street trees will be provided, as was just testified to. And this house is going to be 1 block away from the commercial center on Hamilton Street. This is certainly walkable. We'll provide 2 families to join in as customers of the goods and services that currently exist there. And in addition to that positive economic benefit, the renovation and construction of the house also have a positive economic benefit.
Does the master plan of the Franklin Township give the board any guidance with respect to this application?
There are two passages from the master plan reexamination under the goal of maintain the diversity of housing, excuse me, but encourage infill and stabilization of current residential areas rather than continuing sprawl patterns of development. And underneath that are encourage new construction and renovation in developed areas and encourage the subdivision of larger lots into conforming lots in appropriate locations in developed areas. And I believe that continuing the existing pattern of development here meets that goal of the master plan.
Okay, and that is notwithstanding the fact that the lots we are creating are not conforming lots, they're non-conforming, but yet they're in character with what's in the neighborhood.
That is correct, and the language in the master plan does talk about conforming lots, but I think that for us to look at it as conforming to the character of the neighborhood would be fitting in this case.
Does the land use law give the board any guidance with respect to this application?
There are several passages in support, including A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in this state in a manner which will promote the general welfare. G, provide sufficient space in appropriate locations. I, promote a desirable visual environment, and M, encourage coordination of various public and private procedures and activities. And I believe that this is consistent with those passages by providing for a subdivision that conforms to the neighborhood character.
Do you have an opinion as to whether the rehabilitation of a house which was basically uninhabitable and dilapidated and the addition of a new single-family dwelling, would that be a benefit to or an enhancement to the existing neighborhood?
By maintaining the 100-year-old house, there are several other houses that are very similar to this in appearance. Perhaps they date from the same time or that particular era. And this is a very interesting area of the township with the long blocks, the small lot sizes. That 3 or 4 block patch behind Hamilton was more than likely all set up in the teens or the 20s when those lots were subdivided, and a number of houses were built teens, 20s, 30s. And this matches the character of those houses, a number of which remain there. And I think that this adds to the character. You've got a mix of older homes that are in very good shape and newer homes which are also in good shape. This is a very nice little neighborhood.
Do you have a conclusion with respect to this application and the variances that are being sought by the applicant?
I think that if the board were to look at this under a C2 standard, that the benefits outweigh the detriments, in that this proposal is a better planning alternative than a more conforming design. This application supports the land use law as well as the master plan. The proposed lots are right-sized for the area, conform to the pattern of development. I don't see a negative impact upon the area or surrounding properties, and I believe that this application can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantial impairment of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions of the board for this witness?
I have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the degree to which the size and the design of the proposed home supports your opinion?
The footprint of the proposed home is at 1,100 square feet, and as you can see from the aerial, there are a number of homes that are similar to that. For instance, the house immediately to the north on Pershing Ave, there's a 2-family house right next to this that is fairly large. The houses on the other side of Lewis Street are fairly large. There's a house on Martin to the right of the church that is long, and that certainly gives the appearance of a much larger house than it is. So there are larger houses here, and I believe that this one certainly fits in. It's not a huge leap, I don't think, from the existing 760, jumping now, my apologies, 676 square foot house to 1,100. I don't think it's terribly larger than that it's going to stand out. Plus, this is a long lot. It's not a corner lot, so the house is not going to be visible from the sides. It's only going to be visible from the front. And the house width is 29 feet, which is comparable to the other houses in the area.
Mr. O'Brien, just as a follow-up, you mentioned a church. Where is their church?
Directly across the street on Martin, and that has not only a church, but a parking lot as well.
Thank you.
Just one comment, and I don't think we need testimony on it, but my report did identify the existing non-conforming setbacks for the existing house, which is proposed to remain. Our normal practices in a situation like that to incorporate those as variances that are being requested. And my report did also mention that basically that's taking into account the house as it exists now. I believe the testimony that was provided was that the footprint's not going to change as part of that, and basically making the applicant aware that if they or any future homeowner of that existing house wanted to put an expansion, and to the degree that expansion was in that front setback, they would have to go to the zoning board for another variance. So their proposal for that house is to keep that house as it is, so that if the board's inclined, that's what the variances are for.
That is correct, Mr. Healy, and in addition, we did advertise for those variances in our notices.
Thank you.
We recognize the front yard setback applies to both frontages.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Here's to summarize, if you wish, briefly.
Just very briefly. Mr. Corleone, as I indicated in my opening, purchased this property and is going to be once the house is rehabilitated, a new resident of Franklin Township. He is a builder by profession and is going to be building that second house. I think as Mr. O'Brien described the neighborhood, it's a rather eclectic mix of houses, and that the rehabilitation of the existing house and the construction of the new house is compatible with what is in the neighborhood. The variances, although they are deviations in lot area, we do have substantial separation between the houses to the side of us and to the rear of us, that there is no impact on the adjoining properties. And I think, as in many applications that I have done, where you have an older neighborhood and you bring in rehabilitated houses or new housing, it's a plus for the neighborhood. And sometimes it's an encouragement to some owners who have not maintained their houses to also address some deficiencies that they may have with their houses once they see the neighborhood is being upgraded. So I think for all of those reasons, the board can grant the variance, and I would respectfully request that the subdivision be granted with the variances that we are seeking.
Thank you, Peter. We, of course, do have to open to the public, and we should do this in the normal way. So I'll entertain a motion to do that.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I would move that the meeting be open to the public for a hearing on this application.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is now open to the public on this application.
Mr. Chairman, seeing no one coming forward, I would move that this public hearing be closed.
I'll second. And all in favor?
Aye.
This hearing is now closed. Any other comments or discussion from the board?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I live two houses down from this house. So, yeah, it was in a very bad shape. And we were concerned in the neighborhood about this house. I know the people that used to live there. In fact, I used to go see this people. The house was in a very, very bad state. I'm glad that it's being repaired. And
Yeah, so hold on there a second. So if you live two houses down, did you get noticed from this out? Did you get a notice?
I don't think I got any notice.
Didn't open the mail that day. Okay. Well, in any case, you're going to have to recuse yourself if you live two houses down, because that must be within 200 feet.
I didn't get no notice. In fact, I was shocked when I saw it here. 93 Martin Street. Martin Street.
I mean, do you have proof that the notice actually went out there? Do you send him by registered mail?
We mailed it to him. Let me see if he...
It was mailed. We don't have the receipt, so. But nonetheless, this is within the 200-foot radius.
He's within 200 feet and has to recuse himself.
Yeah, no, that's indisputable. I'm just, worried that if he didn't get it, who else didn't get it? And so I was curious.
We submitted to the township all the green cards, whether
Okay.
Mr. Mansray
So
signed.
you did everything you were supposed to do?
Oh, absolutely.
That's all I want to know. All right.
Just for the record, what an applicant needs to do is send out the mailing. It's a strange kind of animal. They don't need to actually make sure that the mailing's received by anyone. So, it seems a little inconsistent,
just-
but from the applicant's perspective, they have done everything they need to do in order to have the board have jurisdiction for the application.
You probably just threw it out with the electric and phone bill that day. So, yeah, I mean, you're just going to have to not vote on this.
Okay, no problem.
So, all right. I think we have our ducks in a row. Do we still have a quorum to do it? Oh, absolutely. So, all right, we're good to go. So, given that, I will entertain a motion.
I would move approval of the application.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
With the stipulation that what the planner had suggested about the variances for the existing building be included.
Second.
Carl Hauk,
Yes.
Alex Karazi,
Yes.
Robert Mettler,
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow,
Yes.
Godwin Amalola,
Yes.
and Chairman Orsini.
Yes, and I also like to say that I'm glad that the existing house is being preserved. I think that's, not everyone would do that, so I think that's good. And in general, I don't know, the board sometimes does not like undersized lots and, looking for an applicant to, get some advantage in terms of squeezing every last drop out of the lot. But I think this is a very different animal, and I think this is probably one of the better applications I've seen of this type. And so, good luck.
Thank you.
We're package.
All right, so, board members, don't run away. We do have a few quick work session items. And the first one we have is related to the payment of invoices. And so I'll just turn it over to Mark you can tell us what we talked about and see what the board thinks.
So currently, the way that we pay the bills that get paid out of our budget, they go onto the agenda, and we don't pay the bills until the planning board votes on it. There's a new law that if towns don't pay vendors within 60 days, we automatically have to pay interest on those invoices. We want to do everything possible to avoid that situation, not just, it's interest, it's money, but it's also an absolute administrative headache that we want to try to avoid. So the proposal that I offered to the chairman was that those bills, so for example, you have the tonight, and usually with this board, 99% of them are the monthly invoices, because usually it's paid out of developers' escrows. You very rarely have bills other than the monthly escrow before you, which is, by the way, part of the contract that you approve at the beginning of the year anyway, and also gets on the council bill list. So what the proposal is that rather than waiting for the board to approve it essentially again, that I would, when bills like that come in, that I would inform the chairman, and then the chairman can basically authorize it for the board, and then staff can process those bills. And then at the next board meeting, we'll include it in your agenda packet so that in the month or the 2 months, prior, what bills were paid. We just want to use an example. We want to avoid a situation where we get a bill in May, board doesn't meet in July and June and July. Now all of a sudden we have to technically it's a matter of they don't even have to ask. We automatically have to pay. So that's the proposal. Made the same proposal to the zoning board. So it's really to see if any of the planning board has any comments or concerns, questions about that proposal.
The board would be voting on this at the time of the contract, so that.
Yeah, that's exactly the point,
Yeah.
that if for example, the monthly retainers, that gets incorporated, and that comes from the contract, that's kind of worked out at that point. So you've basically already authorized that every month. And again, we'd continue again to put it on your agenda so you would know, since the last meeting, these are the bills that we paid out of our budget. If there happened to be an occasional bill in addition to that, again, you would be notified.
Well, as long as the board has authorized it, which they would with the contract, then yeah, that seems fine.
Okay.
So just a clarifying question, even if the bills were paid and they would still be public record, so if someone wanted to review the finances?
Oh, everything's public.
Okay.
And again, it's you've basically approved it again as part of your contract, and then they also go on the council bill list, and obviously everything the township, especially it's all public record.
Perfect.
I suppose now this is, I know it's not going to happen, but if the lawyer just stopped showing up, would we have some sort of recourse? I doubt that this would happen.
I mean, in that event, if he was not performing per the terms of his contract,
Yeah.
then there are things that we could do to, he'd be in,
To jail you go, Pete.
yes. He'd be in violation of his
That's the
contract.
question I get? Merry Christmas. No, it's like any other contract, obviously.
Non-performance.
If I were to breach the contract and not be performing, you'd have no payment obligation. Actually, you couldn't compel me, but you could hold me liable for damages that you had to pay in order to cover the contract that I didn't perform on. So you can't make me perform, but what you can do is you can go get someone else to cover my shift, so to speak, and tell me whatever you had to pay them, you expect me to compensate you for the difference between the two numbers.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's just make sure.
Again,
it doesn't-
I don't expect that would happen.
I
so.
like coming here.
He likes us. So I don't believe this really requires a vote. I mean, I'm seeing positive head nods. What we will do is, actually, what I should say is, we will actually put it, we're gonna change your bylaws, and we'll present that to you at your January reorganization. So you will formally vote on it. At this point, just wanted to get a sense from the board if there were any comments. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that if anything was to come before me to authorize offline, for example, that I didn't feel was either a normal payment for the attorney or something that came out of developer's escrow, I think, without a doubt, it would be brought before the board. I wouldn't just, willy-nilly go ahead and authorize that without talking to the board, so.
Chairman, just I was wondering whether or not it's better to have two authorization instead of one. Most of the business checks have two signatures. In this case, do you think it makes sense perhaps to have the chairman and vice chairman or one of the board members to authorize, or it's not necessary?
It's probably not necessary, only because, it's either like, when we reappoint, say we reappoint Pete in the new year, Clark and Invignulo as our board attorneys. In that contract will be their fee. So you're, like Mark said, you've already approved it. Anything else generally comes out of the developer's escrow. If it were to fall outside of those two things, I think I would probably ask it to be brought to the board anyway. Unless it was something that, I could determine that, I don't want to cost the township money to pay interest on something that's, sort of a formality. So I think that's the way I would operate with that, is that I would lean towards being very conservative with that.
Okay.
And just for the record, there is another check on anything coming out of a developer's escrow. The applicant themselves have the ability to challenge any bill that I submit, and then that goes to a hearing in and of itself. So there's checks and balances for those. Really, all you would be authorizing that wouldn't be have a counterbalance on would be the regular retainer payment, and you've already really approved that, provided I'm showing up at meetings and doing my job. You guys already know that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So there's your indication there, Mark. So next item is the scintillating new forms. What might that
And
be
the
about?
reason they're before you is that this is, this gets incorporated into your land development ordinance, and any change to the zoning will go before, it gets introduced by council and will be referred back to you formally. But our normal practice is to go through zoning changes through the board first before it gets introduced. So what this is we're updating and really significantly streamlining our forms, variance application forms, site plan application forms, subdivision application forms. Some of them are as old as, I think, 25 years old. If you have a use variance and a C variance and a sign variance all in one application, well, there's three different forms, three different checklists, and the beat goes on. So we're streamlining them. Just kind of, it might be tough in this setting to see, but this is the stack of the existing, and this is the stack of the new. It's basically a third to a half of the amount of paper. And again, it's because instead of having sign variance, use variance, they're all incorporated into one. So you received a copy of these different forms in your packet. They are were prepared by my office. Vince reviewed based on his extensive experience with zoning. He reviewed and had comments. They're currently being reviewed by the technical review committee to see if they have any comments and suggestions. It'll be, the plan is to introduce it, the ordinance, because it does have to be adopted by ordinance in January. And again, it'll get formally referred to you, and then hopefully adopted in, January or February. Okay. Comments, questions at this point?
Paperwork reduction, everyone's for it, right?
This might seem like a silly question, so I apologize. Are these getting put onto like PDFs or Google Docs or something so that there's not so much paper, or
Well,
they have to be?
They'll be on the website. I don't
Okay.
think, they're not going to be electronically submitted.
Okay.
The applicant does submit the necessary, as part of the application form, they submit paper copies. And they submit the digital copies that we put online as well. But these are, the applications, especially before this board, are subdivision site plans. I mean, these are prepared by professionals. You don't necessarily need to hold their hand too much.
Okay.
They know what they're doing. And then the last thing, too, I think I should make clear is, when you look at the checklists indicate for the various different applications, the information and analyses and reports and stuff that they need to provide. There really aren't any, there's no new information or new analyses that are required. It's more a matter of reshuffling and simplifying the forms. It's not like, for a certain type of application, you didn't need a traffic report, and now you do. We didn't add anything new. We basically kept everything the same.
Mark,
In that regard.
I see that you are asking 25 sets of the application forms and so forth. Is that typical requirement?
That's typical. That's for the members of the TRC. That's our attorney does a lot of work in other towns, so that's typical. It's for the members of the board. It's for the members of the TRC that do the reports that go to you, and that's our current requirement. Actually, that's one of the reasons we're doing this is because there's a lot of inconsistency. We have one form that says 20 copies, one form says 24, and then we said, no, it's really 20, so we're trying to make everything consistent and up to date.
Makes sense.
Okay, thanks. Last but not least, digital sign ordinance.
Yeah, what you have before you is the draft digital sign ordinance that we want to give to the Township Council. And as Mark mentioned, it'll be referred back to you, but as in keeping with the policy that, like, was it 13, 14 years ago, we promised the planning board that we would not send anything to the council until the planning board reviewed it first. So we always start here. What this does is it allows digital signage for schools, firehouses, first aid squads, public libraries, and federal, state, and local governments. Digital signs in conformance with our existing ordinance, the signs, locations, everything else. We still won't allow them to have any smoke, rotate, move, or, any type of thing. All this is allowing someone, for instance, like Carl, I really call this the Carl ordinance because for over a decade he's been bugging to have a sign at, the municipal building and public works to give the public information, and because while we can violate our own ordinance, the policy of the township has always been in regard to the signage that we didn't want to have one if no one else could. So this is going to allow basically the public entities to have this type of signage to educate the public in a much greater manner, a much quicker manner. So when Carl has 15 different things at Public Works, he can change them every 5 minutes so that people can buy and see. Same thing with the municipal buildings. Really, the school is ready to put up, our school system is ready to put up 2 signs. They have permits in. We cannot approve them yet until this ordinance is put into effect, and they're going to be able to put up. So the idea is allow them just for that. Once again, as typical with an ordinance, we're going to have to wait to January because we won't have time to introduce it and adopt it, and it has to be done in the same session. So the idea is to introduce this in the beginning of January. It gets referred back to you again, and end of January, February, we'll be able to adopt this and allow the entities listed in here to have digital signage.
Means I see that you do not have for the house of worship.
No, not at this time.
In the things prohibited, shall not advertise or publicize any activity, use, business, product, real estate, or service not located or conducted on the premises. What about political advertising? I think that could be a problem. That be included?
Well,
I mean,
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure I would want a digital sign in front of town hall saying "Vote for Harry." You know?
I'm not, well, the municipality couldn't have that signage because that would be in violation of the law for us municipality to allow such signage. The schools couldn't have that. I don't know about the firehouses or anything. I don't know what the law allows for firehouses, but I can't see a firehouse or anyone else putting political signage up there. I think that would be detrimental to their being able to get funded and, the intent. But, I mean, that's an interest. But we could not do it and the school could not do that. That would be against the law for us to do that.
Yep, sorry. To the extent you have the language regarding use, activity, business not on the premises, I think it would be contrary to what the intent of the digital signage is, which is the ability to advertise the business that exists on the site. So, or pass along information from that business that's relevant to whatever their purpose is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I guess if you start to allow these in front of anything and you've got, a legislator's office on site, that could conceivably happen, but we aren't there yet. So, but until, for the time being, what I think, given the parameters, I don't think you'd have that issue.
It's a good point.
Unless there's any issue, what we will be doing is introducing this at council in January. It'll get referred back to you in the normal course of business, just like the forms will, and you'll have another chance to take a look at it. And but like I said, keeping with our practice that we do not send anything unless it's some type of emergency issue, we always have you review it first.
No, this is pretty long overdue. I mean, most school systems, most first responder, police, volunteer fire, pancake breakfast things have long had these kind of things.
This set is long overdue.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you. Very true. Okay, so I believe that wraps up another year. It's gone by fast. I just want to thank everyone for your service on the board this year. Looking forward to a great 2019. Want to encourage you all to, however you celebrate the holidays, or even if you don't, use the time to relax and rejuvenate and refresh, and see you in the new year. Have a happy new year and very happy holidays.